Hello there, you're watching Nightline. I'm Anita Wu. The top stories. Failure of companies to comply with the SOPs during the MCO would be a criminal offence, says Azmin. And some non-essential services resuming operations without government's approval, says Ismail Sabri. Companies allowed to operate during the Movement Control Order, MCO, must comply strictly with the standard operating procedures set by the government. Senior Minister for Economy, Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali, said it would be a criminal offence otherwise.
Sehingga hari ini, MITI telah menarik balik kelulusan terhadap 4 buah syarikat yang didapati melanggar syarat kelulusan yang telah ditetapkan. Siasatan juga sedang dijalankan oleh JTK Semenanjung Malaysia dan PDRM terhadap 35 syarikat yang telah dilaporkan melanggari syarat-syarat yang telah ditetapkan oleh MITI. Orang awam
He added that the public may also lodge complaints directly to the police or MITI if they come across any violation of the SOPs by the companies allowed to operate. Datuk Seri Azmin added that the Works Ministry and the Construction Industry Development Board, CIDB, have also come up with several conditions that must be adhered to by the construction industry. All construction companies, he said, must reduce the number of workers to the bare minimum or not exceeding 50% of what is currently needed. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Azmin said all workers for essential industries are required to undergo mandatory COVID-19 screening. He said the workers can get tested at any of the 3,000 Social Security Organisation or SOCSO panel health clinics around the country.
Bahawa Perkeso telah pun bersetuju untuk membiayai kos saringan bagi pekerja-pekerja yang berkenaan. Kerana setiap pekerja yang berdaftar pastinya ada rekod dan maklumat dalam data pengkalan data Perkeso. Jadi mana-mana pekerja yang diperlukan oleh majikan untuk kembali ke tempat kerja mesti melalui proses saringan ini dan ianya dibiayai oleh Perkeso.
He said MITI is making this mandatory as a safety measure to ensure that all workers of companies that are allowed to operate are free of COVID-19. Aside from the mandatory screening, Datuk Seri Azmin said companies that are allowed to operate during the MCO are also required to provide thermal scanners as well as screening for symptoms of coughing, sore throat or breathing difficulties. He added the readings of the workers must be recorded and kept for a period of at least 3 months for reference. Datuk Seri Azmin also explained that the decision to allow certain industries to resume operations was made to ensure adequate supplies of food, medication and medical equipment are distributed locally. And to justify Putrajaya gradually allowing more sectors to operate, Datuk Seri Azmin said the local economy was estimated to have been operating at only 45% of its capacity during the first 2 phases of the MCO.
Keputusan untuk membenarkan sektor-sektor ekonomi tambahan beroperasi secara berperingkat semasa PKP tahap 3 akan meningkatkan operating capacity ekonomi negara.
According to him, MITI had received 18,650 applications to operate from additional economic sectors for MCO Phase 3 on the first day that the ministry's application system started operations on April 13th, 2020. Despite the movement control order, which has entered its 3rd phase, there are still many cars on the road. Senior Minister of Security Cluster, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri, said police had found many vehicles, especially from the non-essential services, taking advantage to continue their operations, although they had yet to obtain the approval to do so.
Suka saya beri ingatan bahawa mana-mana perniagaan ataupun sektor perkilangan sekalipun hanya boleh memulakan operasi mereka jika mendapat kelulusan daripada MITI. sebelum MITI ataupun Kementerian.
He added only food and medicine supply sectors could operate as usual. Ismail Sabri said as of Wednesday, a total of 558,480 vehicles had been inspected by the police and the Malaysian Army. He said a total of 56,052 spot checks were carried out by authorities, including 6,364 premises and a total of 1,315 people who were arrested for defying the MCO. In his daily press conference, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri also stressed that Malaysians are not allowed to travel back to their hometowns during Ramadan as long as the movement control order is in place.
Kita juga tidak dibenarkan untuk interstate, untuk cross sempadan negeri sebagai contoh. Interstate pergerakan merentasi negeri ini juga tidak dibenarkan sejak daripada PKP 1 dan PKP 2. Dan bulan Ramadan sekalipun, ia masih lagi tertakluk kepada undang-undang yang saya sebutkan tadi. Dan PKP 3, seperti saya kata, melaksanakan terus undang-undang yang telah kita putuskan.
In related news, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri also said the government has ruled that any form of physical bazaars is not allowed during the MCO period this year, including those with drive-through and pack-and-pick concepts.
Apa saja yang berbentuk bazar, walaupun ada e-hailing, kalau kita wujudkan bazar misalnya, 50 bazar sekelompok dan e-hailing datang untuk mengambil di bazar tersebut selepas melakukan pesanan, ianya tidak boleh dilakukan sebab saya sebutkan tadi, bazar tidak dibenarkan. Gerai-gerai seperti itu tidak dibenarkan. Ya. Tetapi yang perniagaan e-hailing biasa yang sekarang pun dah dilaksanakan dan hantar ke rumah dan sebagainya, itu perkara itu diteruskan seperti biasa.
The matter was decided after a briefing from the Federal Territories Ministry and Kuala Lumpur City Hall on their e-iftar plan to allow the setup of food stalls during Ramadan. With this clarification, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said there should be no more issues on Ramadan bazaars during the MCO. The first day of Ramadan falls on 24th April, which is still within the third phase of the MCO, which is up to 28th April. Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said that Kedah, Perlis and Pulau Pinang are still under the 14-day monitoring period before it can be declared to be free from COVID-19 cases, after days of no new cases. He said the Ministry of Health would then consider if they can be declared as green zones afterwards, with the Ministry's next aim to protect such areas as part of its exit strategy in containing the COVID-19 outbreak.
We hope that within 14 days we can actually identify that. Once we have identified that, we may consider to protect the green area, whether it's the state, whether it's the district, whether it's the Mukim, whether it's the Kampung. So that is our intention in terms of exit strategy. We are planning to make sure that the green area or the green state being protected. Second is with regards to...
One COVID-19 fatality was also reported on Thursday, raising the death toll in the country to 84. The victim was a 66-year-old man with a history of heart disease and hypertension who died at the Kuala Lumpur hospital. Datuk Nur Hisham also revealed that the number of new positive COVID-19 cases in Malaysia has risen back to 3 digits at 110, but it was still lower than the number of recoveries. This brings the cumulative total of cases to 5,182. On the other hand, the number of patients who have recovered and discharged continues to show a positive trend at 119. As of now, the recovery rate has also increased to 53%. Meanwhile, Dr. Nur Hisham also said that the government has approved the use of antigen rapid test kits from South Korea to help boost the COVID-19 testing in the country. He said the test kits have proven to have high accuracy with a sensitivity rate of 84.4%.
Now that we have a test kit that is portable, that is actually fast, that is actually cheap, and then probably with that, then we can actually increase the screening in our targeted population as well as the targeted location.
Dr. Nur Hisham added that the Health Ministry has placed orders for the test kits and expects to get the first batch by next week. The Higher Education Ministry on Thursday assured that admission into public higher learning institutions, or IPTAs, will continue as usual for the 2019 SPM and STPM graduates. In a statement, the ministry said the IPTAs are expected to receive new students for foundation, diploma and matriculation programs for the July to August 2020 session and bachelor's degree programs in October. It added that applications for admission to the IPTAs are still open until tomorrow through the UPU online system, and results of the applications are expected to be made on June 3rd for SPM candidates and August 18th for STPM applicants or their equivalent. The ministry also clarified that 2020 SPM and STPM candidates would still be able to enter colleges and universities next year. It also said the admission would take place in the same year as the postponed SPM and STPM examinations, which is expected to be held in the first quarter of 2021. The clarification came following Education Minister Dr. Muhammad Razi Jidin's announcement yesterday on the cancellation and postponement of this year's public examinations. Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah on Thursday made a personal donation to the COVID-19 fund. Istana Negara, in a posting on its official Instagram page, said that the donation was presented to Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin through the Controller of the Royal Household of Istana Negara, Dato' Ahmad Fadil Shamsuddin. On March 31st, Al-Sultan Abdullah and Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Haja Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria agreed to forego their royal emoluments for 6 months from March to August this year to ease the burden of the government in handling the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. The king also hoped that people would continue to be with both their majesties in praying for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for his blessings and for the pandemic to end soon. Police seized more than 700,000 ringgit worth of drugs in Pulau Pinang. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Still on Nightline. In Selangor, 316 people were arrested within 24 hours of the third phase of the Movement Control Order, MCO, which kicked off on Wednesday. This brings the total of individuals detained for defying the order to 2,250 in the state alone. To ensure public compliance during the latest phase of the MCO in Selangor, police have launched the Aberdeen patrol system to further enhance its enforcement. Despite another extended period of restricted movement, the public are still allowed to leave their homes to get essential supplies, albeit within a limited distance and based on other stipulated rules set by the government. However, this leeway given by authorities have been abused by some people to go out without a valid reason, which could cause the COVID-19 to spread further in the country.
Pada fasa ni, sebenarnya kita tidak boleh lagi berada ataupun sekadar memberi nasihat kepada orang ramai, tetapi kita sebenarnya dah berada pada fasa untuk mengambil tindakan. Sebab seharusnya masyarakat sudah pun memahami dan sudah pun sepatutnya menyesuaikan diri dengan keadaan yang ada yang terpaksa mereka lalui.
He said this after launching the Aberdeen patrol system in Petaling Jaya, which is the first district to implement it, to efficiently monitor public movements in specific locations such as residential or commercial areas. Under the system, a police MPV patrol car will consist of 4 members, including personnel from the Malaysian Armed Forces. 3 of them would disembark and patrol an area on foot for an hour before moving on to another location. The effectiveness of the system will be reviewed from time to time and improved before being implemented in other districts. In Pahang, a Form 5 student who dumped his girlfriend's body in the garage at her home on Sunday was charged in the Rompin Magistrates Court on Thursday for violating the MCO. The accused pleaded guilty to the charge when it was read before Magistrate Azizah Ahmad. The teenager was charged with committing the offence on April 12th by leaving his home in Felda Kratung 5 and going to Jalan Kuantan Seremban, where he was involved in an accident that killed his girlfriend. The offence under the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases regulations provides a fine not exceeding 1,000 ringgit or imprisonment up to 6 months or both upon conviction. The magistrate set June 11th for mention pending the teen's probation report before sentencing him. The court also set bail at 300 ringgit with one shorty and additional conditions for the accused to report to a nearby police station while waiting for the mention of the case. On Sunday, it was reported that a 17-year-old girl's body was found in the garage of a family home at Felda Kratung 10. It is believed the girl went out with her lover on his motorcycle earlier, but they crashed into a buffalo which was lying in the middle of the road at 3:30 a.m. Her panic-stricken boyfriend then carried the victim, who died at the scene, on his motorcycle for about 15 kilometers to her house before leaving her body there. In Pulau Pinang, police have arrested a Lone Ranger drug dealer who had been active for the past 3 weeks in the state during the MCO period. A total of 717,896 ringgit worth of drugs were also seized, the biggest haul made by authorities since the restricted movement was enforced about a month ago. State Police Chief Datuk Sahabuddin Abdul Manan said a police team launched 2 raids in Bayan Lepas between 6:30 p.m. last Sunday and 10 a.m. the following day. In the first raid, police detained the 26-year-old unemployed man by the roadside near Queens Bay. He then led police to a house nearby where the drugs, including heroin, shabu, ganja and Aramin 5 pills, were found inside 2 big pots. Also seized during the operation were a Proton Privé and Yamaha motorcycle worth 37,700 ringgit. The suspect, who tested positive for ganja and had a past criminal record, was remanded until Sunday to facilitate investigations under the Dangerous Drugs Act. It was believed the drugs seized were meant for the local market and enough to cater for over 150,000 drug addicts. Still to come on Nightline, Indonesia records over 300 new COVID-19 cases in a single day. Do stay with us. We move on to the foreign front now. The Indonesian government on Thursday recorded 380 new confirmed cases of COVID-19, the highest number of cases reported in the country since the outbreak. This brings the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 5,516. According to the government spokesperson for the COVID-19 related matters, Ahmad Yuryanto, 27 new deaths were also registered, raising the total number of fatalities to 496. Jakarta recorded the highest death toll of 244 cases, followed by West Java, 53, East Java, 46, and the rest in other provinces of Indonesia. In the meantime, a health expert with the government pandemics task force said the confirmed cases are predicted to exceed 100,000 between early May and the beginning of June. Indonesia has one of the highest fatality rates in the world, between 8% and 9%. Spain's coronavirus death toll soared past 19,000 on Thursday after another 551 people died of COVID-19, with the numbers reflecting a slowdown after nearly 5 weeks on lockdown. One of the worst-hit countries in the world also recorded 5,183 new cases of COVID-19, taking the overall figure to 182,816. Now, despite the slight rise in daily fatalities, the health authorities say that there was still a continuing downward trend for hospitalizations and ICU admissions. Spain has seen the increase in number of deaths and infections come down over the past fortnight, with the overnight fatalities taking the toll to 19,130. However, there are growing concerns that the toll may be far higher, with regional authorities in Madrid and Catalonia insisting they each had thousands more victims than the official count. Madrid, which by Thursday counted 6,877 deaths, has mooted a figure well above 10,000, while Catalonia, where some 3,855 have died, believed its toll to be nearly double that after changing counting methods. Meanwhile, Thailand on Thursday reported 29 new local cases, lifting the total to 2,672 and 3 new deaths, all aged under 60, increasing the toll to 46. The number of recovered cases is now 1,593, a substantial increase of 96 over Wednesday's figures. Thursday's tally of new cases was marginally lower than the 30 recorded on Wednesday. Over in India, 941 more cases were recorded in the last 24 hours, as the total number of cases rose to 12,380. Meanwhile, 37 more deaths reported in the last 24 hours brought the death toll to 414. According to the Health Ministry, of the total tally, 10,477 patients are active cases, while 1,489 patients have been cured, discharged and migrated. Maharashtra has reported the maximum number of positive COVID-19 cases, with 2,916 cases, including 295 recovered and 187 dead. In France, over 17,000 people have now died as of Thursday, while the total number currently hospitalized has fallen for the first time since the epidemic began. A health official said a total of 17,167 people are now confirmed to have died in France in hospitals and nursing homes, compared with a total toll of 15,729 the day earlier. However, in better news, he said there were currently 513 fewer coronavirus patients in hospitals than the day before. France has been in lockdown since March 17th in a bid to slow the spread of the epidemic, with only essential trips allowed. We're back with sports news now. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, said Thursday it will assist Tokyo 2020 organisers, international federations and national Olympic committees to help defray the costs of the postponed Summer Olympics. IOC Coordinating Commission Chairman John Coates, however, warned that serious cost reductions will also need to be considered.
There are additional costs for our international federations, the national Olympic committees and others of our stakeholders, and we're assessing those costs, we're assessing the impact of at the moment, and yes, we will be bearing those costs of the Olympic movement.
Coates said this after a teleconference with Tokyo officials as they begin to build a framework for holding the Olympics in 2021. Tokyo 2020 President Yoshiro Mori said he agreed with Coates regarding cost reduction as organisers begin to assess cuts that may need to be for the Games to be held on the new dates of July 23rd to August 8th, 2021. Coates also said they could have chosen a spring date for the Olympics, but instead decided to wait to monitor the global situation in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, before we wrap up this edition of Nightline, let's have a quick look at what's installed on the front pages of Malaysia's main newspapers, awaiting you Friday, April 17th. New Straits Times highlights on the strict guidelines that concern which sectors must follow while operating during the MCO. Whereas the best-selling Malay newspaper, Harian Metro, underlines the government's stern order to all Malaysians ahead of the holy month of Ramadan. Berita Harian also reports on the standard operating procedures that certain companies must comply with during the MCO, and a report on Petrol Dealers Association that seeks to close some kiosks during the MCO gets the front page of the Malaysian Reserve. Do get your copies today, or better yet, subscribe to the e-paper versions. Looks like that's it for Nightline this time around. And as we wrap, let's have a quick look at some of the Red Bull athletes who have creatively incorporated their trainings into their daily routine in order to stay in shape during the lockdown. That's a little bit of inspiration. With that, I'm Anita Room. Thank you for tuning in and be well.